Assalamualaikum everyone. Myself Zainab Javed and I am super excited to welcome you all to today's webinar brought to you by Eco Revival Pakistan in collaboration with Eco Protectors Balochistan and ECOS. आज हम बात करने जा रहे हैं एक ऐसे टॉपिक पर जो हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, हर बिजनेस और हर प्रोफेशनल के लिए रेलेवेंट है. That is how to bring sustainability into corporate culture and ensure that economic growth doesn't cost us our environment. तो अगर आप ये जानना चाहते हैं कि एक बिजनेस जो है इन्वायरमेंटली रिस्पॉन्सिबल कैसे बन सकता है, सस्टेनेबिलिटी को इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट में कैसे कन्वर्ट किया जा सकता है और आप खुद एज अ प्रोफेशनल या एज अ स्टूडेंट इस जर्नी का हिस्सा कैसे बन सकते हैं, देन स्टे विद अस बिकॉज यू आर इन द राइट स्पेस. But firstly, let me clear a few common questions so that chatbots doesn't get flooded later on. The first thing is that the attendance form will be shared at the end of the presentation, so please don't ask repeatedly about it during the session. Secondly, the form will close right after the webinar, so make sure you fill it before the session ends. And avoid filling the chat with unrelated messages ताकि सबको attendance form जो है वो मिल सके. Thirdly, if you have any question, you can drop them in the chat box and we will take them up in the Q&A session. All right, now it's time to introduce our very special guest for today's webinar, someone whose experience and work speaks volume in the areas of sustainability, climate leadership, and corporate responsibility, and has been involved in numerous initiatives focusing on environmental governance, corporate responsibility, and public-private development partnerships. Today, he will be sharing valuable insights on driving sustainability in corporate decision making. So, without any further delay, let's welcome our guest speaker, Sir Mustafa Iqbal. Over to you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I just want to say that it is an absolute pleasure to be here, invited by the Eco Revival team. And it makes me very, very happy that at a youth level, at our level, we are doing what we can to drive corporate sustainable change in Pakistan, which, as we'll go on to discuss, is one of the challenges that we are facing nowadays. So I've prepared a little presentation for you all. So if we can go through that, that is going to be good. Just give me a second to pull it up. All right, do let me know if it's visible. All right, can everyone see that?
Yeah, it's visible.
Visible, okay, perfect. Okay, so incorporating sustainability in the corporate setup, ensuring environmental considerations in economic activities. Sustainability जो है पाकिस्तान में एक काफी नया कॉन्सेप्ट है. सुनते तो हम इसके बारे में आ रहे थे, हमने बहुत सारी चीजें सुनी थी CSR के बारे में, और पिछले 3-4 सालों में हमने थोड़ा सा सस्टेनेबिलिटी का बज़वर्ड इस्तेमाल करना शुरू कर दिया. एक कॉर्पोरेट लेवल पे अगर देखा जाए तो सस्टेनेबिलिटी क्या है, व्हाट डज इट इंटेल, हम इसे कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट करें, ये हमारे कुछ आज के ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं. सो लेट्स मूव फॉरवर्ड. Yeah. Okay, so our agenda for today is divided into 4 topics. Number 1 is understanding corporate sustainability. Number 2 is a discussion on strategies for incorporating sustainability. Number 3 is going to be some of the practical steps that businesses can take. And number 4 is going to be a small case study we've prepared. So let's jump right into it. First of all, let's discuss our key takeaways for today. So firstly, we want to understand why sustainability is a game changer for businesses. ऐसा क्या करती है sustainability businesses के लिए कि आजकल दुनिया पागल हुई है. Whether it's the US, whether it's Europe, whether it's Asia Pacific, या even if अगर हमारे पड़ोस में देख लें तो इंडिया भी they've implemented sustainability, whether it be on their government side, in their corporate side, whether it's their public sector or their private sector. So what is the driving force behind this? After that, we're going to look at how we can interweave sustainability strategies into corporate strategies, which is actually probably one of the most important points that we're going to discuss today, because when your sustainability strategies and your corporate strategies don't align, that runs some issues. You start, running initiatives that perhaps don't really, that might yield environmental benefit, but don't actually yield benefit to your business. We're going to learn some things about actionable steps to implement and measure sustainability. This is going to be from things like, the KPIs, what sort of initiatives could we be taking? How are they measured? What is impact actually? And then lastly, we're going to take a look at our case study and see how that company went about implementing a all-around end-to-end sustainability transformation. So first topic, understanding corporate sustainability. What is it? Why is it important? And how do we go about it? So corporate sustainability, I don't think I'm going to have to explain this very much to you guys, but it's the idea that a business should operate in a way where it gives back to the environment, it gives back to society, and it gives back obviously to itself in the form of profit, right? In an ethical manner, in a manner that is consistent with local and international regulations, right? It is not just about making money, it's about generating value for the people involved. So sustainability is of three types. There's environmental, social, and economic sustainability. And as we go on, we're going to discuss this within the framework of ESG. But I wanted to take a minute here and I wanted to ask the question to you guys. What do you think is the difference between sustainability and ESG? So if I could get maybe a few answers in the chat, or if someone would like to raise their hand and come up, that'd be great. Anyone? Right, okay. So since we're not getting answers, I will go ahead and let you guys know that sustainability, oh, okay, we do have someone in the chat. What's ESG? Okay. ESG is environmental social governance. So I will repeat the question. The question was, what is the difference between sustainability and ESG? Sayyaba says sustainability is the goal. ESG is a way to track progress towards that goal. ESG is maybe converging environmental social governance factors into corporate business. Very nice, very nice. Okay. So yeah, you guys are right. It is the convergence of these three factors, and sustainability is the goal, while ESG is a means to achieving that goal. Uh, while sustainability refers to following the SDGs, not exactly. SDGs are an overarching framework that covers sustainability, but we'll get down to this in just a second. Sustainability is the broad goal of a healthy future, while ESG is a specific framework. That is Mohammad Aftab. That was exactly the word I was looking for. ESG is a framework, right? And this is where people often get confused that why is it necessary to have a sustainability strategy as opposed to an ESG strategy? So when we look at sustainability and ESG, so ESG is environmental social governance, and it is a critical framework for evaluating how a company operates their environmental stewardship, their social responsibility, and their governance and leadership. So the environmental criteria would be things like, oh, what sort of GHG emissions does this company have? What sort of production processes are they using? Are they letting effluents out into the water streams? When we move on to social, we're going to be talking about employee relations. Whether employees are being treated fairly, do they have decent work hours? Are they covered by an HSEQ policy? And then this is going to extend further onto your external stakeholders. So this could be your suppliers, these could be your shareholders, these could be your investors. So the consideration of the social aspect, and then following that is the governance. How the company in itself at an administrative level incorporates the ideals of sustainability within itself. So I think everyone here is from Pakistan. तो अगर आप लोगों ने पढ़ा हो तो SECP अपने कॉर्पोरेट कोड ऑफ गवर्नेंस में पिछले साल ये प्रोविजन लेके आई है कि एक तो all publicly listed companies are supposed to have a female board member, and number two, all of them are supposed to have an ESG committee or a sustainability committee. And this is basically to highlight that Pakistan is taking a very serious steps toward actual impactful measurable ESG regulations, rather than just saying that, oh, हमारी कंपनी ने साल के एंड पे रिपोर्ट निकाल दी है और हम ESG कर रहे हैं. So when this will basically create a top-down structure that is going to support uh, as we move on to deeper sustainability considerations, inshallah, when we start going into our scope 3 emissions. Pakistan doesn't have the framework for these things right now. We don't have the data available yet. So building this administrative infrastructure is very, very important for Pakistan right now. Moving on, we're going to talk about what is driving businesses towards sustainability, right? And there's some external factors and there's some internal factors. So external factors, number one is regulatory pressure. जब तक हमारे सर पर डंडा नहीं मारा जाता है, हम सीधे नहीं होते. So basically, this means that up until regulations started coming into Pakistan, there were only probably a handful of public companies that were reporting on their sustainability. Mostly industry leaders. You had Habib Bank, you had maybe in the IT industry, you had Systems Limited. In the FMCG sector, you had National Foods, Unilever, right? All of these big names, because they had a global compliance issue, right? But when it comes to local Pakistani corporates, a lot of them were not interested in reporting on sustainability up until the corporate code of governance demanded it. And that basically that also tells us a little bit about the culture surrounding sustainability in Pakistan. It's not being seen as a way to expand or extend the lifetime of your business. It's being seen as a headache, additional compliances, additional costs, right? And as we move forward, we're going to discuss how important it is to change these things. uh, Secondly, moving on, we have investor expectations, right? Investor expectations goes beyond just the investors. It also translates over to customers. So investors are increasingly asking for ESG considerations when they are evaluating what companies to invest in. And the same thing goes for customers. Customers want to see a green label. It makes them feel like they are a part of the initiative to create some sort of change within the industry. And I think a very good example of this is the textile industry. The textile industry in itself in Pakistan is actually probably standing at the forefront of ESG integration or sustainability integration. And that is because we want to import cloth to Europe. We need to import our textiles to Europe. And Europe has very, very stringent regulations regarding the import of goods. So if you guys are aware of the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, it's a very, very comprehensive standard that that basically outlines that, in order to sell their product within the EU, any company, whether it be from Pakistan or India or Bangladesh or Thailand, they're going to have to meet certain environmental, social, and governance standards, without which they won't be allowed, or they're going to be subject to very heavy fines or very heavy taxation, or in our case, tariffs, right? So, and yeah, investor expectations and consumer demand. But on the internal side, for a company itself, why does sustainability matter? So number one, we're going to talk about operational efficiency, right? Sustainability leads to cost savings. It is, but when I say cost savings, I do want to make it clear that sustainability leading to cost savings does not mean that there is not going to be an initial or a rather heavy initial investment on for sustainable technologies. For example, if we were to go around uh, implementing solar at let's say NFL's offices, right? There is going to be the initial startup cost for that, but the benefit that is going to be yielded over the next 10, 15, 20 years, uh, it's going to far surpass what we see as an initial investment, right? So operational efficiency is going to be number one. Number two is risk management, right? As it stands, risk management for businesses is, usually on the manufacturing side, there are registers, HSCQ audits, internal audits, uh, and these open these basically help a business track a variety of risks, right? But when you talk about sustainability, it opens up three more categories of risks. You have obviously environmental risk, you have social risk, and then you have governance related risks. And the field of the all three of these risks is very wide because they deal with your operations end to end, whether it's from the manufacturing side or whether you're in the service sector. You are going to have to consider, oh, if I'm going to, let's say, transport my goods from Karachi to Lahore, that is going to have a certain impact through its GHG emissions. If I'm going to do it through truck, train, plane, it's all going to have separate calculations which are going to, which open us up to a sort of risk. If we say that, oh, NFL had uh 3.6 billion tons of GHG emissions in 2024 versus Shan Foods, which had maybe 2.4 GHG, 2.4 billion tons of GHG emissions in 2024. People would actually prefer to go with Shan because they don't see the risk. They don't see that polluting entity as opposed to one that is, maybe optimizing its supply chain or optimizing its operations, rather than one that chooses to continue on in a traditional manner, right? And lastly, we have long-term profitability. And long-term, obviously, all businesses are in the business of making profit, right? So sustainability, as I said earlier, it basically extends the life cycle of your business, right? That's what we're aiming to do. It's not just about creating environmental impact or social impact or creating communities in the board. It is about actually, at the end of the day, making more money by offering a product that has a better life cycle, that has less impact. So these are some of the drivers, right? I can see we're having yeah, Fatma, in Pakistan we have to pay tax for installing solar, while in other countries they pay you, and the energy generated by solar is sent to the grid. Exactly. Yeah, the net metering regulations were I mean, for anyone that got solar, they know how much of a headache it was, with very little return. So while initially it was a very good initiative, it had there been some form of policy that would have returned that benefit to the consumer, but the tariffs were absolutely crazy. So there's the solar is pretty much, I don't consider it a huge success, but it did drive renewable energy integration within Pakistan, which is good for sure. But there's lots of factors to be considered here, right? And I feel like we might get off topic if we went into the conversation of solar and the regulatory compliances associated with it. But it's a very good point. We do need that support from the government, if we're going to go ahead pursuing sustainability in corporate spaces, right? So next up, we have, what are businesses gaining from sustainability? So number one, they gain stronger corporate governance. There is a whole accountability framework that exists within sustainability, right? It's all about transparency. It's all about putting information out there in a measurable and in a manner that it can be tracked and then replicated and then worked upon further, right? So when you have this data, when you're able to when you're given this information, you're able to take better decisions, you're able to mitigate risks more quickly, right? And you overall, your company moves and progresses, and the transition that sustainability offers progresses very quickly, right? uh Obviously, like I said, you have better data, right? And by better data, I mean, with a lot of processes that are that sustainability and that entails sustainability. For example, the tracking of your GHG emissions, right? If you're able to figure out, for example, in your supply chain, where your GHG emissions are coming from the most, you can then take specific steps to increase your efficiencies there. For example, um, if let's continue on the supply chain example. If, for example, Shan Foods has to travel 21 kilometers, right, and they uh, have to spend, let's say, about 300 liters of petrol, right, as compared to maybe National Foods, who only has to travel 21 kilometers and has to spend about, you know 90 or 95 liters of petrol. What Number one, it generates savings, right? Obviously, you're spending less on petrol, right? And you have less GHG emissions. So for Shan, a measurable or a comparable model would be that of NFL's, which has, number one, optimized their supply chain, right? They're using better modes of transport. They're using perhaps they might be using biofuels, which is a whole conversation in Pakistan these days. Biofuels are very in. So it once you have better data, you make better decisions. All of these points, all of sustainability inexplicably links to the other point, right? When you make a change somewhere, it sets off a chain reaction within the entire organization. So, and then moving forward, number three, access to capital, right? As we spoke about earlier, investors are increasingly favoring companies with strong ESG performance, right? And nowadays, if anyone has been to the bank recently to uh, acquire a corporate loan or any sort of credit, after a certain threshold, I believe, you're given an environmental social checklist, and this is basically, this falls under the framework of Pakistan's green banking guidelines and environmental social risk management framework, where now banks are going to assess whether or not you meet the mark, your business activities meet the mark to actually carry out sustainable business within Pakistan, right? And these are their basis is on IFC's performance standards, which are a very, very comprehensive standard for tracking environmental, social risks. So with such frameworks, right, you are going to see that companies that have higher environmental social scores will actually be given more concessions when it comes to financing as compared to, let's say, an oil and gas producer, which we know, has a very heavy environmental debt to pay, right? And then moving on to number four, we have enhanced product and service quality, right? And this is actually one of the areas I want to highlight because uh, we live in a country that is known for its textile industry, right? And the textile industry these days is all about fast fashion. So you take, make, and you throw away. What we are trying to do now with bringing sustainable change in is we want to move from fast fashion to slow fashion or circular fashion where materials are being reused. So a really good example of this is the denim industry, right? Pakistan has done quite a bit of work on renewable denim. The big industry players, for example, you have Interloop, Rajbi. These guys do a lot of work on integrating reusable fabric, reusable denim into new products, right? And what that does is it not only takes it out of the cycle and puts it back in again, it creates a product that is built to last. Where what we the issue right now is we don't have products that are built to last. If we buy clothes 6 months, 3 months, maximum a year, after that they become useless. So when you invest in your product, when you invest in making a product that is going to last a lifetime or a longer time than its standard life, right? And you include within it materials that are eco-friendly, that are sourced ethically, right? Your consumers would actually be willing to pay a higher price knowing that, hey, this thing I'm buying is not going to cause any negative impact. It's not going to release microplastics out into the ocean. It's not. It is going to biodegrade over maybe 5 or 6 years, right? It's not going to go and pollute the oceans. So these considerations, these are why businesses are moving very quickly towards sustainability. And since it is a relatively new space in Pakistan, they're having a little bit of trouble understanding what this is. Because when we were in the era of CSR, these things were purely for the annual report where, oh, we're going to present a case that we built a school, or we installed a water pipeline, or we did a cleanup drive. Well, all of these initiatives in themselves are very, very helpful to implement. The problem comes is, how is this initiative actually benefiting your business apart from creating a better corporate image? So these are the 4 points I wanted to put before you these days on what businesses are gaining from sustainability. Moving forward, right. Moving forward, we're going to talk about strategies for incorporating sustainability, where to start, how to generate impact, and what does successful adoption look like. So what is a sustainability strategy, right? A sustainability strategy is that structured plan which is going to tell you how a business is going to go about achieving its sustainability goals, right? And it has four main components. Number one are the environmental goals. Number two is the social responsibility. Number three is the governance and ethics. And number four is the operational integration. Right. So when we're talking about environmental goals, I'm sure you guys have got it figured out by now. We're going to be talking about reducing GHG emissions, reducing power usage, maybe introducing a sustainably designed office, right? That uses materials which have lower embodied carbons, right? For example, you could use in place of traditional concrete, you can use non-sulfate concrete, right, which has a lower embodied carbon percentage. Next, we talk about social responsibility, right? So you're ensuring your labor practices are fair. You're ensuring that your HSE policy covers all of your employees, whether they're your full-time workers, your part-time workers, your third-party workers, right? It's the commitment to ensure that the community within your organization is diverse, right? Me being in the consulting and accounting field, I personally am not an accountant, but in working in an accounting firm, we do see sometimes that there was a culture that existed within accounting firms maybe 10, 15 years ago, right? And obviously EY as one of the big four and as a global leader in this space, is doing a lot of work to change it around. For example, in EY now, female employees actually are more encouraged to take on leadership positions, which is great. And mashallah, we have quite a few female directors now, and we're hopefully also going to get a female partner very soon. So, these although these may not seem like big initiatives, right? The impact they have is very great. Especially in a society like Pakistan's, where maybe female participation is limited in the corporate sphere, especially at higher positions, right? Moving on, then we'll move on to governance and ethics. So this is going to be, how we want to promote transparency within the organization. What are going to be who is going to be accountable for sustainability, who is going to be accountable for the environmental initiatives. So the entire chain of command that's going to be created is going to basically rely on the sustainability strategy business is going to move in. And then we talk about operational integration, right? uh, Integrating sustainability into your daily operations, into your supply chains, into the very company itself, right? So, actually, I'm seeing quite a few things in the chat. Sorry. I'll get to these right after once I've finished up this slide. So, whether it's something as small as, sorry, I have a question here from NIST Academy. Can we go ahead? Hi, NIST Academy. You have your hand raised. Right. Okay. So, anyway, so yeah, incorporating that culture into your company goes beyond just, let's say, going paperless, right? it it actually comes down to every single individual within the organization, right? What do they think sustainability is out? What makes them passionate about sustainability, right? So you'll see actually in a lot of companies in Pakistan that do have a sustainability department, that apart from the 3 or 4 or 5 people that work in the sustainability department, the rest of the organization doesn't really know what's going on. There are a couple of initiatives here and there. Oh, we did a tree plantation, or we did this, or we did that. So, but individually, everyone has to make that effort to ensure that, business practices are sustainable and their work is sustainable at an individual level. For example, if I have to make a report, right? Am I and I have to get it printed, I know it's going to be like 200-250 pages, right? What can I do that is going to help us out, that is going to, reduce the impact? One small thing you could do is maybe, rather than printing out your report on a single page, you do a front back print, which is, it's a very small initiative, but it helps save, for a 250-page report, you would save half. So, that's quite a lot. That brings the numbers down quite a lot. Similarly, if I were to say, oh, what sort of, if I look at the water usage in companies, or if I look at the usage of food stuff, a lot of food stuff gets wasted in businesses nowadays. People order from outside, they don't finish it, things get thrown away. This is all an impact, and it all translates over to the wider impact of your business on the environment, on society. And when, although you may not be reporting on this at the end, it is going to showcase the very essence of sustainability within your organization. So keeping in mind that, every individual has that responsibility, we are now going to talk about why are sustainability strategies important. So number one, it aligns the business with global trends, right? Pakistan is a developing market. A lot of these ideas come to us a little late. Sustainability was definitely came to us late, right? As a nation, we still don't have our own sustainability framework, right? Which is why we have lagged behind. We have our NDCs, we have our national climate change policy, but when it comes to corporate governance, it was only last year where, they made a sustainability report mandatory, or they made having an ESG committee within the room mandatory. So alignment with global trends is going to be is something that, whether it's the SDGs, whether it's the Paris Agreement, whether it's the Kyoto protocols for carbon markets, right? Keeping up with these, knowing what is happening in the sustainability space, right, is going to keep us updated on what the world is doing. And Pakistan, the one thing is that Pakistan, in the context of sustainability at least, doesn't want to be a global leader. Why? Because, we often hear that, oh, Pakistan is one of the most affected countries by climate change, and we emit very little, right? So that is exactly why Pakistanis are like, oh, if we are going to go ahead and implement sustainability, how is it going to lessen the impact on us when, majority of the impact that we are being hit with is generated by others? But they say this without realizing, right, that the impact that we are facing from global warming, whether it's the floods, or whether or the impacts we face from the smog in the winters in the Punjab region, all of these are, first and foremost, they have to do with our own environment. They have to do with our own ecosystem, right? If we are not going to keep our air clean, I doubt China or India or America or any of the these big industrial giants are going to care what is happening to us, right? So it is very important that we realize that, it starts with us. It even ends with us. It doesn't matter if the US considers Pakistan's sustainability efforts as minimal or maximized. What is important is that Pakistan is making those efforts, and a trajectory can be seen towards a sustainable developing future, right? So global trends, why is the alignment important? It helps us know, it helps us present the case for sustainability within our country, right? Number two, we have why, what does sustainability do? It drives long-term value. As we discussed earlier, extending the life cycle of your business, right? Focusing on long-term value rather than short-term profits is basically the recipe for growth, for the growth of your business over an extended period of time, right? It's going to lead to reduced cost, it's going to mitigate risks, and it's going to create a stable foundation for future successes, right? And when you talk about future successes, the basically the way you spearhead future success is through innovation, right? So when we are enhancing innovation, sorry, when we're enhancing innovation, when we encourage sustainability, right? We're always looking for ways to make, oh, let's make this process more efficient. Let's try and reduce our emissions from here. Let's use a more sustainable material from here, right? Let's maybe find a manufacturing process that has lower inputs and higher outputs, right? This fosters that culture, that this forces every single person in the organization to think, hey, how can I go about innovating my workspace today, right? A very, very simple example of this within the corporate space today is the use of AI, right? It's made things so much easier for us, a lot easier for us. Sorry, I'm just checking the chat. Uh, Right. So in Pakistan specifically, I think we need to focus on small to medium industrial units established in urban areas. I think we should be aware of those less equipped businesses with sustainability, and we need to take initiatives to promote sustainability in corporations in small scale industries, which is polluting our environment more than the corporate level. My feedback on it. You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, what happens here in Pakistan, and in my experience so far, is right. A small business uh, does not really won't really do anything until or unless it's pushed by bigger businesses, right? Until or unless it sees that, oh, a market is being created for this. And this ties back to our regulations, right? We, like I said, reporting is mandatory now for publicly listed companies, sustainability reporting, but there's nothing for the SMEs, right? Which is concerning, because as you correctly pointed out, it is a very large sector, right? But the problem comes is that that SME CEO or that SME director, when you go and you talk to them, they're going to tell you, oh, our impact is so tiny, it's negligible, right? But what they're not, they view it in the terms of, oh, what is the impact, what is the cost, what am I getting out of it? And they look at it from a very short term perspective, which is very unfortunate. If they start looking at it, okay, there's social impact, there's environmental impact, there's economic impact on the business, you are going to get more returns in the future, but you are going to have to wait. If you want to sustain this business, if you want to run it for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? That investment is going to yield results in the long term, which is what SMEs usually miss out on. And our economic state in Pakistan, people are focused more on uh, they are basically focused more so on short term profit rather than long term value. So I hope that feedback was helpful, and I'm going to jump back into the presentation right now. So we left off at innovation, and how it's a very important force to drive and implement sustainability strategies within businesses, right? But once we've incorporated ourselves with these business with global trends, once we're looking for that long-term value and we're innovating, right, it prepares us for regulations that are coming in the future, especially for Pakistan, where there are no regulations right now. We're going to be ready, say, in 2 years, when very rightly you pointed out, like there's no SME, there's no work being done on the SME side. If SMEs started work today, they could be ready within a year or two, to have a full sustainability rollout. And maybe, if regulations came by the next 3 to 5 years, we'd be sitting ready. We wouldn't have compliance issues. You guys would not be, businesses would not be running to consultants to, oh, please design our sustainability strategy, etc., etc., etc. Right? So this basically, this is a sort of flow chart. This is a sort of in itself a process, right, that is going to be going on continuously, where businesses are going to align themselves with the global trends. They're going to chase that long-term value. In doing so, they're going to innovate, and they're going to prepare for future regulations. And then this process is going to start all over again, right? It could be called ESG, it could be called sustainability, it could be called anything. But at the end of the day, your goal is to create sustainable long-term impact, right? All right. So why moving forward? Sustainable practices for businesses, right? One second. Yeah. Sustainable practices for businesses. So these are just examples of, some practices that businesses can implement. Uh, Energy efficiency, using LED lighting, energy efficient appliances, smart building systems. One of the actually something that I was working on very recently are green buildings in Pakistan, or sustainably constructed buildings in Pakistan. And you would be surprised to know that construction of buildings in Pakistan is contributes to about 40% of the energy used within the country, right? So, you know, top down, when we're going to build a business, whether it's actually building the corporate side of the business or building a space for that business, a physical space for that business, right? Sustainability should be a consideration. Next, we're going to talk about waste reduction. You can run this initiative within your office, right? Implement a recycling program. Put down separate bins for, recyclable and non-recyclable materials. Uh, if you have the space, for example, a lot of production plants have parks or gardens. You can maybe start a compost bin, right? So all of these things are going to be they're going to be initiatives that you can take. Sustainable supply chains are very sustainable supply chains. So when you're looking at, oh, where am I getting my raw material from, and how am I putting my finished product out into the world, right? That is a very key consideration, because if your supply chains are not sustainable, if you're buying material that is toxic for the environment, that is toxic for the people that are involved, right, you are going to open yourself up to risk. You're going to open yourself up to court cases, right? Maybe not immediately, maybe it's going to take a couple of years for people to realize, when health problems start. So you look at it, from the very beginning. You start looking at it from a manner that is consistent, right? If you, let's say, you want to source denim, right, in Pakistan. Okay, you're going to source it from, you have the big names like Rajbi, or you have Interloop. But there's also denim mills in Punjab which are going to give it to you for half the price, but the dye they've used is toxic, right? So preparing these considerations, meeting with your suppliers, finding out what their demands are, what they can do for you, whether they can submit to an environmental assessment, whether you can give them an environmental checklist that they're supposed to sign off on, is very important, right? Because these are going to be the benefits, or god forbid, the negative impacts that are going to shape your business, shape the outer extent of your business, right? From before you get your raw material to after it's converted into a product and then given to your customer. Number four, we have fair labor and ethical practices, right? Safe working conditions, fair wages, diversity, uh, no harassment. All of these things are, they speak for themselves, right? I mean, I think we're, mashallah say, we're living in 2025. सबको पता है कि कितना शोर मचता है लेबर पॉलिसीज पे. आपको पता है कि पे के आजकल हालात अच्छे नहीं हैं. You know, whether you're a graduate from IBA or whether you're a graduate from Mirpur Khas or KPK, right? You're not being paid what you want to be paid or what you need to survive, right? And that is going to impact a business. How? Number one, it's going to really raise the labor turnover, right? And we're seeing this in all industries across Pakistan, that newer resources, especially, I would say, people that have come into the industry probably slightly before COVID, but also, but definitely people that have come in or graduated or have started working after COVID, they're not happy with the work they're doing. They're not happy with how they're being compensated. They're not happy with a lot of the policies. They're not happy with a lot of the flexibility that is being exercised within the corporate space. So we are going to have to look at these things, and we do want to keep happy resources. When a resource is happy, when an employee is happy, their work speaks for themselves. Where you see that, oh, an employee is unhappy and they're not being able to perform, are you going to go give them that motivation? Are you going to maybe, if you can't give them a better compensatory package, right? Are you going to give them some sort of benefit, or some sort of social benefit, be it, that is going to make them want to stay, make them put in the work, right? And it does come down to a lot of transparency and accountability, because whoever your higher up is, right, they are supposed to be held to that mark. And finally, we're talking about renewable energy adoption, which is obviously, a huge theme. Renewable energy adoption, whether it's solar panels, whether it's hydroelectric power, whether it's biogas, any of these green energy options, right? They're going to cut down your reliance on fossil fuels. They are going to reduce your long-term energy cost, and they are going to support you in achieving your climate goals, right? But more than that, renewable energy is also going to it's also going to create a framework for you to give back a lot, within the framework of net metering, if I add. uh, a lot of corporates, a lot of manufacturing units which have converted to solar, were selling their electricity back to K Electric, and that yielded them quite a bit of money, because they were producing at an industrial scale, and maybe from our homes we can't do that, but on a corporate level, it yielded a lot of benefit. Moving on. Right. Yeah. Practical steps for businesses. Where does the conversation start? What does impact look like? And what does successful adoption look like? Starting off, starting the conversation around sustainability. So we mentioned sustainability strategies dictate how businesses go about implementing sustainable practices. And it's in alignment with the business's corporate strategy, because where you fall out of that alignment, you're sustainable, you're creating impact, but you're not creating impact for your business. So preserving the culture of sustainability, right, is the responsibility of every single person in an organization, CEO to support staff, right? So this diagram we have here, right, again, it represents one of those continuous loops, right? You start off, you can lead by example, right? You yourself, maybe if you choose not to print, on a single page and rather use double-sided pages, people can be inspired by that. If you want to start the conversation in your business about sustainability, you could be the one to do that, and you could be the one to generate that positive change, right? You could speak to people about it, speak to your colleagues about it, speak to your boss about it. It all ends up translating. uh 1 second. uh okay, we have a question here from Shafia. Right. My first question is, can corporate sectors truly benefit financially from adopting sustainable strategies if cost savings are reinvested into infrastructure and efforts to develop sustainable materials, potentially offsetting the initial businesses to communicate the value proposition of eco-friendly to price-sensitive customers? This is a very, very good question. Um, and anyone that wants to ask a question, you guys can raise your hands and you can unmute, and we can go ahead and discuss that. But this is a very good question, Shafia. And I would say that yes, corporate sectors can truly benefit from adopting sustainability strategies, even especially if the cost savings are reinvested into infrastructure, right? Because a lot of when businesses are starting off, right, they're hesitant to put a lot of money forward, right? So if it's a small initiative, for example, if you went ahead and installed uh, water efficient taps in the bathrooms, right, you're going to be saving up on water. When those savings come back to you, you, at least on the balance sheet, you're going to be able to see, hey, दिस वाज माय, पानी पे मेरा ये खर्चा था, अब मेरा पानी पे ये खर्चा है। उस वक्त 1 लाख रुपए था, 50,000 रुपए हो गया है, 70,000 रुपए हो गया है, जितना भी। Developing those sustainable materials, right? You are not, you're 1 second, sorry. People of sustain potentially following the initial financial gain, right? So when once you reinvest into these into these strategies, right, you are going to see, actually you're going to see increasing returns, right? Because as it moves further, for example, in I can give you examples, whether it's on environmental, social, or governance, right? So for environmental, like I said, there's these water savings where you take money out of these water savings and you put them into solar. Maybe the returns are going to be slower, but they are going to be there. You are going to see them in maybe an X amount of time, right? Uh, and as for your second question, in Pakistan's price sensitive market, right? That's a very good that's very good insight, right? Where consumers are price conscious. So I would say that, why, as much as our consumers are price conscious, right, we are seeing that certain segments of consumers, particularly when we talk about high spenders, right, they are looking for sustainable alternatives to, conventional products. So this is going to come down to, how you're marketing your product and what is going on there. But for as it falls, as you mentioned, right, we are a price sensitive nation, and if we're going to start marketing it to the general public, we'll definitely face some issues, because not everyone is going to want to go ahead and put money down for something that claims to be sustainable, right? कि वो मतलब ठीक है, ये 4 साल बाद जा जमीन में जाके ये कोई गंदगी नहीं पैदा करेगी. The layman won't care about that, right? So it's a very good point. So you do have to, when you're looking at sustainability, right? You do have to consider that not everyone can be it can't be marketed to anyone, right? But on the other side of this, when you talk about social sustainability, when you talk about initiatives that benefit communities, right? When you talk about services that benefit communities, right? अगर आप किसी किसान को जाके कह दो, यार तुम ये मेरा फर्टिलाइजर है, ठीक है, ये अगर तुम खरीदोगे तुम्हारी यील्ड इतनी बढ़ जाएगी, ठीक है, साथ में जो तुम्हारे खेत से पानी निकलेगा वो जाके दरिया में गंदगी भी नहीं करेगा, तो हाँ, फिर वो शायद थोड़ा सा हो सकता है कि उसका दिमाग खड़के और वो बोले, यार मेरे ना तो मेरे गांव का पानी गंदा होगा और ना और मेरी मेरी फसल भी बढ़ जाएगी. तो it's all about how you frame it. Moving forward, Ahmad has also asked a question: wouldn't incorporating sustainability into the textile industry would diminish the profits by switching from fast fashion to slow fashion? If people would throw away and then buy again, hence more profit for companies. Ahmad, yeah, that is a good point. But the thing with slow fashion is, right, you are using a higher quality material. You are making something that is built to last. You do have the ability to charge a higher price for it, and your consumer knowing that, hey, this is a sustainable product, this is going to last me for 5 years, maybe I can spend some more money on it, right? For the textile industry, maybe for a certain sector, right? If we talk about brands like H&M and Zara, right, who are basically leading this entire fast fashion revolution, for them it's not feasible, right? But because if they start making these products and they start selling these products, uh generally, no, I'm not talking about specialized products, I'm talking about they go head to toe. Zara now only makes sustainable clothing, only makes clothing that's going to last you 5 or 6 years. They're going to face a major issue, right? But the products that they will make, that are sustainable, that are built to last, they can definitely charge a higher price for that. And we see this in I remember something very clearly from H&M. I wanted to buy a coat. I saw two of them. One was polyester, and I think the other one was cashmere, right? And because of the difference of the material, the prices were up and down. So when you do realize that, oh, somebody must be out there buying that cashmere coat as opposed to that polyester one, right? When the polyester one was maybe like $40 and the cashmere one was like $300, कोई तो खरीदने आया होगा, right? और वो उसी में अपनी कॉस्ट रिकवर कर लेते हैं, उस महंगे प्रोडक्ट में ही कर लेते हैं. Next, we have Miza. Thank you for such an. Can we say life cycle assessment of a product is a type or leads to ESG? Life cycle assessments are a little. They do tie into the overall overarching concepts of sustainability, but it's basically, from the start to the end, the stages your product goes through, right? And this can be regarding its physical properties, this can be regarding the impact it has environmentally. So yeah, it does fall under the scope of ESG, right? And there are going to be certain products that you're going to have to initiate a life cycle assessment for, but not all of them. For example, you wouldn't have to initiate a life cycle for this mug, right? It's fairly straightforward. You take clay, you're taking paint, you have heat, right, for the glazing. So in that sense, you might not. But for something like, let's say, uh, an office building, yeah, you might need to have a life cycle assessment, right? Shafi, so it means we can offer consumers some additional and connected benefits that actually can attract people. Yes, Shafi, you're absolutely right. By using sustainable practices, recycling their products, initiatives, and using sustainable fibers instead of non-biodegradable materials in their products, like you mentioned, polyester, etc. Absolutely right. So they are shifting towards that. But I'm talking about the model for their clothing being reused, right? Like हमें तो ये पता है कि ये चीजें यूरोप से फारिग होकर आकर हमारे पास लंडे में गिरती हैं, right? And that creates a sort of a circular model, right? But जब वो हमारे पास से जाती हैं, when we throw those products away, we don't know where they're going. We don't know where this life cycle is ending, whether it's ending up in a landfill or whether it's going and being put into the process to reuse for that fiber again. Mr. Academy, what will be the impact of sustainable products on poor people and in developing countries? Okay, this is the last question I'm going to take right now, and then I'm going to move on with the presentation, and then I'll get to the rest of your questions. So the products on poor people in developing countries, right? So when we talk about the less fortunate, um, for them, sustainability is something that doesn't really, matlab, they're not thinking about it, right? But does it matter for them? To them and for them are two separate conversations. For them, yes, it does matter, because it's going to be affecting the environment they live in. It's going to be affecting the kind of products they're going to be working with. Okay? A lot of less fortunate communities live in places where there is a lot of waste, right? If that waste is toxic, if that waste bleeds toxic substances, whether it is dyes, whether it is mercury, whether it is anything, right, there is going to be an effect. वो ही अगर वो टॉक्सिक डाई कराची की गर्मी में पड़ी पड़ी इवेपोरेट होती है, तो उसका वेपर कहीं तो जाएगा, किसी को तो कोई तो उसे सूंघेगा, कुछ तो उसका इफेक्ट होगा, right? But when it comes down to them seeing value in sustainability, यार उस बंदे को तो मतलब उसका तो सबसे बड़ा यही मसला है कि यार मैं या तो अपने या तो मेरी छत रहे, मेरे बीवी बच्चे खाना खा लें, right? So maybe for them, sustainability in the context, or as we talk about it, through the lens of ESG, may not matter so much. Maybe for them, sustainability is sustaining their lifestyle the way it is, right? For example, when we talked about social governance, the social aspect, right? लेबर की जहां पर बात आती है, राइट, अगर वो जो गरीब तबका है वो ज्यादातर लेबर होता है, ठीक है, उनका क्या कवरेज है इन बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियों की HSEQ पॉलिसी में? उनकी कॉम्पेंसेशन क्या है? वो उनको मिनिमम वेज दे रहे हैं, नहीं दे रहे हैं? बल्कि आई रिमेम्बर आई was quite a few years back, I went to Lahore to the textile mills for a visit, and there were only, I think I only saw one mill जिस पर ये बहुत खुले अल्फाजों में लिखा हुआ था कि 18 साल से कम के बच्चे को हम नौकरी नहीं देंगे, नहीं कर सकता वो काम, लेबर नहीं आ सकती 18 साल से कम की। एक मिल थी, दिस इज आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट इन 2013, right? I did not see it anywhere, and I'm talking about some of the biggest names in the textile industry. I've heard things have gotten better. I haven't visited a lot of textile mills since then, but इस तरह की चीजें थोड़ी सी on the corporate in the corporate sphere, they are not as wouldn't be viewed as importantly, right? This would translate over more to the sustainable development key side, where we're going to be talking about, you know, marginalized groups and stuff. So I'm going to pause the questions here, and then as we move forward, inshallah, Q&A session mein I'll get to all of them. ठीक है? So we talked about this, how we're going to start the conversation, how we're going to lead by example. We have to propose green initiatives. ठीक है? एनर्जी ऑडिट करवाएं आप लोग अपने ऑफिस का। किसे पता है कि भाई यार हमारा एक लैपटॉप कितना दिन में 8 घंटे अगर हम ऑफिस में होते हैं तो वो कितनी बिजली खा लेता है, और उसको कॉम्बैट करने के लिए हम क्या कर सकते हैं? मे बी वी कैन यूज अ मोर एफिशिएंट चार्जर, मे बी वी कैन यूज मोर एफिशिएंट फिटिंग्स, राइट? इस तरह की चीजें। और एंड इफ यू कैन गेट डेटा, इफ यू कैन फिगर आउट कि यार क्वांटिफाई करके अगर आप बता देना कि यार इतने मेगावाट सेव हुए, इतने रुपए सेव हुए, तो योर इनिशिएटिव्स कैन बिकम रियल, यू कैन स्पीयरहेड द चेंज विद इन योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, right? Next up, we have joining a sustainability committee. If any of you are working anywhere, whether it's a big corporation or it's a small corporation, spearhead a sustainability committee. Okay, start that conversation. uh, and I'm saying this not just within the context of it being important, you know, aajkal ke corporate zone mein, but for your own careers, right? We're not going to get anywhere without sustainability for the next 10 to 15 years. That much has become clear, right? So for, I would say, for you know, I myself am a young professional. I graduated 2 years ago, right? And I've been working with EY ever since, as a sustainability consultant. So, you know, and when I joined EY, it was just me and my director. So, you know, we had to build this from the ground up. And that not only did that create a space for sustainability within our organization, it created a space for us as individuals to be known, to grow, to generate impact, to showcase our abilities and our specialization within the field. So, you know, this is going to become a platform for each and every single one of us to go ahead and, you know, showcase the change that we're making. So joining a sustainability committee, I 10 out of 10 recommend it. Next, we have tracking and sharing progress. Sustainability report तो निकलती है publicly listed companies की, छोटी companies की अगर निकलती है तो निकलती है, but tracking these KPIs, right? कि कितनी energy savings हो रही है, कितना पानी save हो रहा है, कितना turnover हो रहा है, गवर्नेंस की जो मीटिंग हुई थी, जो लास्ट सस्टेनेबिलिटी कमेटी मीटिंग हुई थी, उसमें क्या हुआ था, क्या डिस्कस हुआ, कौन से पॉइंट्स है जिधर हमें एक्शन की तरफ लेके जाना है, राइट? It's very important. And then when you spread this information within your organization, you are going to have people that are going to come up to you and be like, yeah, you know, maybe we could have done this better, or maybe we could have done that better, or maybe, you know, this could have been a way to spearhead that initiative better. So track your progress, share your progress, improve transparency, right? These things have to be very transparent. You cannot have sustainability without having transparency. It is absolutely crucial. Next, you align your projects with ESG goals. I mean, this speaks for itself. And I think, you know, the background that we have now over the past couple of slides, you guys understand that, you know, when you're going to be moving towards aligning your projects with sustainability or with ESG, what factors are you going to be looking for? Advocate for training and education. We have a huge example right in front of us. We have Eco Revival, right? This is what they're focusing on, and at an individual level, at a company level, you know, at a managerial level, this is what all of us have to be doing. We have to push our businesses, our companies, our places of work that, hey, you know, we need this information. It's not that we need this information because it's trending. We need this information because it's going to impact our business for the next 10, 15, 20 years. ठीक है? And then lastly, we're going to come to collaborating across departments. So once we have this knowledge, once we've aligned our projects, right, that's when you start to go into your organization and you start looking for places where you can collaborate. For example, HSEQ and HR, right, both have to work collaboratively. अगर अगर एक बंदे को इंजरी हो गई और उसको कॉम्पेंसेशन चाहिए, तो ये कौन डील करेगा, एचएससी क्यों करेगा या एचआर करेगा? सो यू नीड देयर हैज टू बी दिस लिंक बिटवीन both of the departments. There has to be links between the procurement department and the operations department. भाई रॉ मटेरियल आ रहा है, सस्टेनेबली सोर्स्ड है, ऑपरेशंस में आ रहा है, तो यार अच्छा ये सस्टेनेबली सोर्स मटेरियल है, कहीं ऐसे मैं ऐसी मशीन में तो नहीं डाल रहा हूँ जो इसकी सारी मतलब सस्टेनेबल सोर्सिंग तबाह कर दे, पावर खा के, तेल पी के, जो भी, राइट? सो it again, this becomes an ongoing process. It repeats itself as more resources join, as your business grows bigger, right? And this is basically how you incorporate sustainability into your corporate culture. You keep your objective, the objective of your business, at the pinpoint, right? Which is 99% for businesses, it's profit, right? So even if it is to, generate profit by doing XYZ, by creating, by making the best jeans of Pakistan, or by making the best burger of Pakistan, or whatever, right? How are you going to do that sustainably? Can you make the best sustainably sourced burger in Pakistan? Can you make the best sustainably sourced pair of jeans in Pakistan? Right? So it's basically framing your mind in a manner where sustainability becomes the first consideration every time you go and do some sort of, every time you're going to go ahead with some business activity. All right, moving on. Impact and how to measure it, right? So impact is the lasting effect of interventions, right? क्या रहा, हमने ये चीज कर तो दी, हमने दरख्त प्लांट तो कर दिए, लेकिन अब क्या मिला हमें उससे? दरख्त तो प्लांट कर देते हैं, खान साहब ने बिलियन ट्री सुनामी चला दी, वर्ल्ड बैंक डज 500-600 plantations in Pakistan every year, all over Pakistan, right? What is the impact of these plantations? How much GHG emission is being reduced? कितना ऑक्सीजन बना रहे हैं ये दरख्त, right? Until or unless it's tracked and it's measured, we don't know, which is why it is important. Because अगर हम एक इनिशिएटिव ले लेते हैं और हमें ये नहीं पता है कि यार अच्छा इससे एग्जैक्टली हमें ये बेनिफिट डिराइव हुआ, तो देन दैट डिफीट्स द पर्पस ऑफ दैट इनिशिएटिव. आपने दरख्त लगा तो दिया, आपको अगर ये नहीं पता कि वो कितना आपका कार्बन निकाल रहा है एटमॉस्फेयर से, तो इट इज यूजलेस. देन it's there, it's doing the job, but you don't know anything about it. You can't quantify it, and you can replicate it, but you can't replicate it knowing that यार अच्छा मुझे ये पता है कि यार अगर मैं 500 दरख्त लगाऊंगा तो मेरा 1 टन GHG एमिशन कम हो जाएगा, राइट? तो विदाउट नोइंग कि एक तरफ कितना निकालता है या 5 तरफ कितने निकालते हैं, आप यू कैन नॉट गो अहेड विद दिस इंफॉर्मेशन, राइट? So either we have some sustainable practices, their descriptions, how they impact the business, and what are the KPIs to track, right? So for energy efficiency, we also mentioned pehle LED lighting इस्तेमाल करें, smart system इस्तेमाल करें, energy efficient equipment इस्तेमाल करें, solar लगा लें, ठीक है? इम्पैक्ट क्या है? emissions reduce हो गए, energy costs low हो गए, ठीक है? Gives you money that you can reinvest. You can reinvest it in other sustainable initiatives. You can invest it in other places. ये कोई कैद नहीं है कि यार अगर हमने सस्टेनेबल इनिशिएटिव से के थ्रू हमारे पास पैसा आया तो हमें उसे सस्टेनेबिलिटी में ही डालना. You can go ahead and invest in some other initiative. You can invest it in the marketing for that sustainability initiative. So then, it's key KPIs, kilowatt hours, emission saved, cost savings. Similarly, waste reduction, recycling, composting, lean manufacturing, लैंडफिल वेस्ट को मिनिमाइज करना. अच्छा, वेस्ट in itself is a huge area which needs work, right? Because अगर आप लोगों को पता है, कराची में सिर्फ लैंडफिल वेस्ट है, ठीक है. सिंध सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट बोर्ड एक इनका आई बिलीव गडाप में लैंडफिल है, और एक अभी रिसेंटली इन्होंने खोला है जाम चाकरो पे. These landfills, right, they pose a huge threat because there's no sorting of this waste. बस जैसा तैसा है, भले उसमें हेवी मेटल्स हैं, उसमें पॉइजन है, उसमें टॉक्सिक चीजें हैं, प्लास्टिक्स हैं, मेटल्स हैं, सब कुछ, एवरीथिंग इज जस्ट बरीड, ठीक है. एंड उसका जो फिर then these toxins and these materials they leach into the ground, और वो आपकी जमीन को मार देते हैं. they kill off the soil, they kill off the good bacteria. If you have a water table beneath a certain level beneath that ground, then that is also polluted. खैर उसका एक पूरा एक सिस्टम होता है, to ensure कि ऐसा ना हो. And now there are also waste energy systems. For example, World Bank and government of Sindh are implementing a biogas capture facility at one of their landfill sites, which is a very interesting initiative. तो इसको मिनिमाइज करना, लेकिन राइट, इंश्योरिंग दैट आपके प्रोडक्ट, जब आप अपना प्रोडक्ट बनाएं तो उसके अंदर से ही इतना कम वेस्ट निकले, या आप उस वेस्ट को एक ऐसे तरीके से यूटिलाइज कर लें which can be profitable for you, right? That would be better as opposed to sending it off to a landfill, right? Sustainable supply chains we've talked about at length. Water system, water conservation we've also talked about at length. Renewable energy, I don't think I need to explain to anyone what are the benefits and what key KPIs are. Fair labor practices, like we said, safe conditions, fair wages, no harassment. और उससे यही होता है, it improves the well-being, it improves retention, it improves the quality of work all over, right? और इसकी key KPIs, employee satisfaction, turnover rate, living wage compliances. And then there are some HSEQ KPIs like incidents कितने हुए एक साल में, 6 महीने में. Harassment का भी यही होता है कि how many harassment incidents were there any, how were they resolved. All of these qualitative and quantitative factors do end up playing a role, right? And I think we're on the last slide of this section now. So we're talking about what does successful adoption look like, right? So there's basically five key areas, right? Number one, measurable impact. You can measure your impact, if you can measure your GHG emissions, if you can measure your waste, your social outcomes using KPIs and ESG metrics, you have taken the first step towards adoption. To strategic integration. वही जो हमने बात की कि business strategy और sustainability strategy, they should both be coming together to create an overall corporate strategy, जिसमें ना आप प्रॉफिट फोरगो करोगे, ना आप अपनी सस्टेनेबिलिटी फोरगो करोगे. आप दोनों चीजों को साथ में ऐसे लेके चलोगे कि यार ये हमारा प्रोडक्ट है, लेकिन हमारी जो ब्रांड की रेप्यूटेशन है, जो हमारा यूएसपी है कि इज दैट वी आर दिस सस्टेनेबल, राइट? Stakeholder engagement, internal and external stakeholders both, right? Because this helps you align the expectations you have from whether it's your employees, whether it's your suppliers, whether it's your sorry, कोई कुछ कह रहा था, right? Sorry, my bad. So it helps you align these expectations beforehand that, hey, my supplier expects this of me. These are the issues he could face. And this is going to translate over to your external stakeholders as well, like, your shareholders or your investors, or even the communities that live around where your operations are, right? अगर आप, for example, अगर आप waste दरिया में dump कर रहे हो, राइट, और उस या नाले में डंप कर रहे हो, और उस नाले के पास एक बस्ती है, उन बस्ती वालों को आपका फर्ज है कि आप बताओ कि यार मैंने ये डाला है, खुदा का वास्ता है पानी नहीं पीना है यहाँ से. इफ यू आर नॉट, are, number one, you're opening yourself up to a huge litigation risk, right? But within the context of sustainability and sustainable implementation, आपने अपना फर्ज पूरा नहीं किया. You've not completed your due diligence, and you've not done all that you have to do, right? Then we have innovation. Innovation, like we spoke about earlier, is that you're constantly looking at ways to improve not just the sustainable aspects of your business, but also your product itself. You're looking at ways how you can generate more profit for your business through sustainable means, right? And then lastly, we have transparency. You're clearly reporting your sustainability goals, right? You're using a framework, for example, IFRS S1 S2 आप इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं रिपोर्ट करने के लिए, ठीक है? आपके सस्टेनेबिलिटी रिस्क्स भी कवर्ड हैं, आपके क्लाइमेट रिस्क्स भी कवर्ड हैं, आपने स्ट्रैटेजी भी बताई हुई है कि ये है हमारा, ये ESG का की कमिटी है, राइट? बिकॉज when you're transparent with these, and you're able to showcase कि यार हाँ हमारा बिजनेस सस्टेनेबल है, तो then people, even if they don't want to, they are drawn towards it. That, oh, like, why what makes it sustainable, how is it sustainable, kya impact pad raha hai, right? Whether it's even a random investor, right? Or even if it's a post on Instagram where you see green and sustainability and eco, आप मुतासिर होते हो, आप 2 मिनट के लिए रुक के उस चीज को देखते हो कि यार कुछ हो सकता है, maybe it's something that is helpful, maybe it is something through which I can play a part, is what the consumer might think. So these are the 5 steps or the 5 pillars of successful adoption of sustainability within a business, right? And moving forward, I would like to present to you guys this small case study that I compiled. I unfortunately can't share the name of who this is modeled after, but they're a very big FMCG producer in Pakistan, right? And they were aiming to integrate sustainability into every stage of their value chain, production to end of life, right? And they were, उनकी motivations basically ये थी कि एक तो SDGs और Paris Agreement से तो सबको align करना है. Anyone that has a sustainability strategy is based, their strategy is based off the SDGs and the Paris Agreement, right? There's no other real framework. I think actually, yeah, there's no other real framework to base your sustainability strategies off, ever since the SDGs came around. Before that, there were a few, but not all of them were as all encompassing. कुछ स्पेसिफिकली बिजनेसेस को देखते थे, कुछ पर्टिकुलरली गवर्नमेंट्स के लिए थे. एसडीजीज ने इन सबको एक जगह करके ऐसे प्रेजेंट किया है कि यार वो गवर्नमेंट हो, वो बिजनेस हो, वो इंडिविजुअल हो, वो कम्युनिटी हो, वो they can go ahead and apply all of these goals or work towards applying all of these goals without discrimination, right? Next, they wanted to improve their operational efficiency and reduce costs, enhance their brand reputation, and future-proof the business against regulatory and market shifts. And this actually came in before the corporate code of governance amendment. So these guys were ready when that came in. They were like, "हम कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है, हमें कोई कंसल्टेंट नहीं हायर करना है, हमने तो ये सारा काम किया हुआ है." There's एक additional cost से बच गए. And by the time the corporate code of governance came around, and sustainability in Pakistan became a whole conversation, these guys by that time were already receiving the benefits from their sustainability implementation. So they were already quite advanced, and they weren't worried about what is going to happen once the regulations come in. So now we're going to talk about the barriers and motivators for them. Okay? Number one motivator was leadership commitment. The executive team, the board, they were actually spearheading this initiative. which is something that is so important, because if I tell you, boards in Pakistan, 99% of them are not very keen on sustainability, because as we mentioned, they view it as a cost. मैं एक कंपनी की बोर्ड ऑडिट कमेटी में बैठा था, और हमने अपनी पूरी we were basically doing a IFRS S1 S2 readiness analysis for them, and they were scheduled to report in 2027. So when we sat there and we did that conversation with them, तो हमने अपना पूरी प्रेजेंटेशन कर ली, एंड पे वो बस हमसे ये पूछते हैं, जी ये अगले साल के बजट में तो नहीं आएगा? मैंने बोला नहीं, ये तो 2027 का, बस यहाँ पर मीटिंग खत्म होगी. So it's very important to have leadership to at the executive level and at the board level that actually values sustainability. Next, we had stakeholder pressure. Stakeholders were putting pressure on the business that, hey, you need to go for this. Whether these stakeholders were foreign or Pakistani, we can't know for sure. But most probably, if stakeholders are putting pressure and knowing the nature of the business, they were probably foreign stakeholders that were putting pressure on this business to, because exports जाएंगे, तो इन स्टैंडर्ड्स तो मीट करने होंगे, भले वो ईयू के हों या वो यूएस के हों या वो मिडल ईस्ट के हों, राइट? इनोवेशन अपॉर्चुनिटीज, like we've discussed very explicitly that new markets, new product design, uh it all plays, it is a huge motivator, because businesses are absolutely crazy for innovation, right? Especially nowadays where कोई नई चीज business corporate दुनिया में तो कोई नई चीज रोज आ जाती है, right? So innovation was a big motivator. Data and technology, right? Now these guys had been doing their sustainability reporting for a while, but when this end-to-end value chain transformation they needed the data and the IT infrastructure to support it, right? So, and then when we talk about the barriers, right, we have initial investment costs, high investment costs, as we've talked about. Usually there is quite heavy investment when it comes to sustainability. Change resistance, internal processes होते हैं. Sometimes we like to say कि dinosaurs बैठे हुए होते हैं, and they just don't want to change. They feel like it is the end for them. Supply chain complexities. So in this case, because there was a lot of agricultural products and unki processing involved, it was very important and it was very difficult to get sustainable supply chains to ensure that suppliers were meeting environmental, social standards, right? And then there were data gaps, huge data gaps, especially on the supplier side, because जो बेचारा एक ट्रकिंग कंपनी चला रहा है, उसको क्या करना है अपना जीएचजी एमिशंस मैप करके, या वो तो ये देखता है कि यार अच्छा ठीक है, मैं अगर कराची से लाहौर जाते हुए इतना पेट्रोल बचा सकता हूँ तो वो मैं बचा लूं, बट उसे क्या फर्क पड़ता है कि यार वो डीजल इस्तेमाल करे या वो हाई ऑक्टेन इस्तेमाल करे. They're not worried about these things. All they want is mileage, because that relates to their cost. So, even explaining to your suppliers that, hey, this is something we want to work on. This is how it's going to work. This is the benefit it's going to yield for you. That is a whole process too. And finally, we're going to come to the key takeaways. I'm just going to rush through it, guys. I hope I've not taken too much of your time so that we can quickly do the Q&A. So number one, holistic integration delivers real impact. You have to embed sustainability at all levels of the value chain. Har jagah, har department, har banda, they should feel responsible for sustainability. Without which, kahin na kahin there might be a shortfall. Transparency builds credibility. Like I said, transparency, it is the basis of all the reporting that you do. It is the basis of everything you showcase when we come to sustainability. Innovation is fueled by sustainability, like I said. So you guys are going to see these recurring themes, right? Integration, transparency, innovation, collaboration, right? All of these things, because this is what sustainability is based off of. If you want to these are recurring processes that happen again and again and again and again. And it is through these processes that we innovate, that we move forward, that we become more sustainable, right? But I think one of the biggest key takeaways from this project is start small and scale strategically. You don't have to go and create an entire sustainability strategy for your business. You can start small. You can start off by, at least finding out, okay, what are the areas where my business is the least sustainable. मेरी सबसे ज्यादा एनर्जी कहाँ जाया हो रही है, मेरा सबसे ज्यादा पानी कहाँ जाया हो रहा है, मैं सबसे ज्यादा इमिशंस कहाँ से दे रहा हूँ. So, once you've identified that, you can take a small initiative here, a small initiative there. When that starts yielding benefits, right? When you start getting returns on that, when you start getting data, that is when you sit down and decide, okay, this is where I'm going to scale. If I want to reduce my GHG emissions, let's say in my production process, maybe I should switch over from traditional energy to renewable energy. Maybe if I should switch over to a more efficient water use system, right? So you don't have to go big. You can start small. You can start at the individual level even, and then we can move on to bigger things, right? Because you can't embed sustainability when it's huge. It's very difficult. People are very worried about it. They're like, oh, अब ये कहाँ से आ गया, इसका ये सर का दर्द कहाँ से पालें. ठीक है, छोटी छोटी चीजें करेंगे, people are going to get the hang of it, they're going to start moving forward, and before they know it, they're going to start thinking sustainability, right? So these were my key takeaways from the case study, and we are done with this conversation, with this presentation now, and I would be happy to take your questions. I can see there's quite a few. So first of all, we have Vania Taktis. Another business idea I want to share that can work really well is sustainable industries can start to collect old dresses from customers and who are buying new ones. In this way, they can recycle them both in fast fashion industry and sustainable industries, and will benefit the global. They can recycle them both in fast fashion industry and sustainable in a collective whole. Vani, you're absolutely right. And actually, this concept is called the circular economy, right? And it's a very vast concept. It doesn't just stop at, oh, अगर H&M ने ये जीन्स बनाई तो H&M ही वापस, जब उसकी लाइफ एंड हो जाए तो H&M ही उसे वापस ले और फिर दोबारा से बनाए. A circular economy, कल को H&M से आप जीन्स लें, पुरानी हो जाए, 6 साल पुरानी हो गई, 3 साल पुरानी हो गई, जितनी भी पुरानी हो गई, आप you go and you do some embroidery on it, and you go ahead and sell it. That is a circular economy, and it is the need of the hour in the fashion industry, right? So this is a great business idea, and you should definitely work on exploring it. Majority of the Umaima says majority of the population in Pakistan comprises of low income families. How can the corporate sector make sure to provide sustainable products to them in prices they can afford, since we wouldn't be targeting only high income population against this social sustainability? Right. So when we talk about marketing sustainable products to the everyday supplier, right? If we talk about it from end to end production, right? अगर आपके पास पूरा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस आपके हाथ में है, from the raw material to actually selling it, it becomes a lot easier, because if you are able to grow a sustainable raw material, for example, if you want, अगर आपको सस्ते चावल बेचने हैं, ठीक है, या आपको सस्ता कोई भी एग्रीकल्चरल क्रॉप बेचना है, राइट? अगर आप, पानी तो दरिया से ही आता है, ठीक है, उस देर आर डिफरेंट वेज ऑफ maximizing the utilization of that water in any given field, right? If you use those water conservation techniques, if rather than using urea fertilizer you choose to use natural manure, right, there you are saving on costs, right? And those are benefits that you can then go ahead and transfer to your consumer. But where the supply chain is not fully in your hand, it does become a lot harder, because आपकी यू आर बाउंड बाय योर सप्लायर्स प्राइस। या तो यू ब्रिंग योर सप्लायर इन एंड यू आर लाइक यार ये देखो ये मैं मॉडल क्रिएट करना चाह रहा हूँ, उसका ये बेनिफिट होगा, ठीक है, but we are going to have to give the product at a cheaper rate so that we can market it to lower income groups, right? It as far as it goes as being against social sustainability, right? In the अगर corporations के जुमरे में हम देखें, right, social sustainability corporates के लिए उन पर अप्लाई होगी, ठीक है, जिनका जो कि कोई स्टेक होल्डर है। वाइडर सोसाइटी पर इस मामले में होगी कि कोई नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट तो नहीं पड़ रहा है, but if somebody is not able to afford a specific product, right, that is not that won't really impact the sustainability of the corporation itself. It's just, you know, something is more expensive, something is less, that is like the very essence of capitalism, unfortunately, right? But there are methods of going about it. Like I said, you know, you can take the entire value chain into your hand, or you can collaborate with your suppliers to create a model that is going to be more sustainable, right? uh, Amna, to everyone, how can organization align its ESG practices with its broader sustainability goals? So when you talk about your sustainability goals, right? आपके पास अपने सस्टेनेबिलिटी गोल्स पढ़कर ही एक आइडिया आ जाना चाहिए यार, अच्छा, अगर मेरा सस्टेनेबिलिटी गोल ये है कि आई वांट टू बी नेट जीरो बाय 2030, राइट, हाउ कैन आई गो अबाउट बीइंग नेट जीरो? मेरे इमिशंस क्या हैं, मेरा वाटर का के यूसेज के क्या है, मेरी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कितनी यूज हो रही है, मेरा मेरे इमिशंस ड्यू टू ट्रांसपोर्ट कितने हैं, मेरे एम्प्लॉयज कितने इमिशंस कर रहे हैं, अगर खाना देती है कंपनी तो वो उसके क्या इमिशंस हैं, राइट? It will vary with what your sustainability goals are. You know, every ESG practice is going to vary with what your end sustainability goal is. So, you know, having an example would be a bit more helpful. We are adopting used clothes and have a big market discarding clothes waste in our country, African countries. There is no solution by the policymakers in the restriction such clothing in Pakistan. It will highly influence and greatly challenge our country's situation very worse in the next 10 to 20 years. However, we are self-sustainable in textiles as the second largest sector after agriculture. Instead of using second-use clothes to meet the demand of the local market with affordable, less price, but the cost factor is critical segment for low income population of marginalized population of the country. Dr. Nazaka, this is some great insights, sir. And I fully agree with you कि पाकिस्तान टेक्सटाइल के मामले में सेल्फ सफिशिएंट है, लेकिन हमारा सबसे बड़ा जो ड्रॉबैक जो हमारी अपनी आवाम के लिए आता है वो कॉस्ट का ही है. And it's very unfortunate that the government is not helping us out in this regard. You know, we every मतलब सभी लंडे जाके lower income groups में especially, they are the ones that, you know, go and ज्यादातर लंडे से खरीद के लाते हैं, and then they use those clothes in whatever state they're in, right? But that end producer response, EPR जिसे हम कहते हैं किसी चीज की, वो बिल्कुल भी नहीं है. पंजाब में एक्चुअली रिसेंटली इंट्रोड्यूस हुई है ईपीआर की पॉलिसी फॉर प्लास्टिक वेस्ट. So inshallah we're going to start seeing some, you know, work on that, specifically ये जो आपकी bottling वाली side है. So we're going to see plastic waste coming back, local plastic waste coming back into factories and being converted into new bottles for bottling. So that. Do you think businesses in Pakistan are lacking transparency and accountability in their supply chain mechanisms? If yes, then what are the reasons? Yes, very serious transparency issue in Pakistan's supply chains, because number one तो ये बात है कि आपका सप्लायर अवेयर ही नहीं है. आपका सप्लायर जो है, राइट, स्पेशली जो फॉर एग्जांपल प्राइमरी इंडस्ट्री में है, ठीक है, अगर अगर हम रॉ मटेरियल की बात करें, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री, ठीक है, आपका सप्लायर, कॉटन का सप्लायर कौन है? ठीक है, जो भी आपका कॉटन का सप्लायर है वो आ तो किसी खेत से रहा है, वो खेत वाला किसी, या तो किसी सप्लायर को बेचेगा, या जो भी उसका लैंडलॉर्ड होगा वो जाके डायरेक्टली मिल को बेचेगा। ठीक है। इन लोगों के साथ बैठकर सस्टेनेबिलिटी डिस्कस करना इन अ मैनर वेयर दे आर गोइंग टू सी कि नहीं यार, ये तो हमें उतने पैसे नहीं मिलेंगे जितने हमें पहले मिल रहे थे, या हमारा उतना प्रोडक्ट नहीं निकल रहा है, या हमारा उतना मार्जिन नहीं है जितना हमें लग रहा था। राइट। वो उनका दिल ही नहीं चाहेगा, उनको उनको सस्टेनेबिलिटी से कोई लेना देना ही नहीं है, उनको सिर्फ पैसे कमाने हैं। So that is the number one reason, right? And also it's in the lack of transparency, a lot of a lot of businesses are not also, especially suppliers, are not tracking these KPIs. They're not tracking their GHG emissions for every mile they travel, right? वो लोग, उन लोग के पास जब रॉ मटेरियल हाथ में आता है, वो लोग ये नहीं पूछ रहे कि यार इस खेत में 18 साल से कम का बच्चा कोई काम किया था या नहीं किया था। ठीक है। या इस खेत में कोई, किसी जो प्रेग्नेंट औरत थी, उसे मटर्निटी लीव मिली थी या नहीं मिली थी। राइट। सो फॉर देम दीज इश्यूज आर मतलब नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट। उनको तो ये है कि भाई हमें सब मटेरियल सप्लाई करना है, और हमारा जो जो कस्टमर है, दैट दैट इज अ बिग कॉर्पोरेशन। ठीक है। So it will fall on the corporation to ensure that their suppliers are doing the most for sustainability, right? You can't expect the supplier to go ahead and do it himself. You have to push them. Okay, very nice. Lecture slides, very insightful, very engaging. Thank you, everyone. Uh, all right. I don't think we have. Okay, Valibana, could you please share insights on how CDM is being utilized in Pakistan, particularly in relation to climate adaptation and mitigation projects? I want to do another session specifically on sustainable development in Pakistan. So I'll definitely bring this up there, but I'll just give you like a very small brief. We have a carbon markets policy now, right? At least in a draft level, right? And the potential for carbon abatement and CDM in Pakistan is huge, especially कराची और कोस्ट लाइन एरियाज में, क्योंकि हमारे पास मैंग्रोव्स हैं, और हमने रिसेंटली जाकर एक प्लांटेशन भी देखी थी मैंग्रोव्स की, which is estimated to output, sorry, offset around 400,000 tons of carbon emissions. So इस पर एक बहुत डिटेल्ड गुफ्तगू की जा सकती है, but inshallah, if I'm able to have that session on international sustainable development, Aftab, I'll definitely bring this up. Is there enough capital for companies which operate on a smaller scale to invest upon technologies which can quantify the impact? What tools are required to quantify impact? Okay, so quantifying impact के लिए जो tools है ना, a lot of, देखें, अगर आप मतलब if you want to go ahead and you want to get an AI system that is going to track all of these things automatically, तो खर्चा तो है. I know of a organization here in Karachi that मतलब पूरा solution देती है, GHG emissions tracking from A to मतलब from tracking to reporting. And actually they're collaborated with EY, so उनकी जो reporting पे sign off होता है और उसकी जो checking होती है वो हम ही करते हैं. But they that system costs like $10,000. ठीक है. It's a lot easier to track these things by yourself. For example, greenhouse gas emissions के लिए, there's the greenhouse gas protocol. उसमें चीजें बहुत clearly define हुई हैं कि यार अगर वो 1998 से 2005 के बीच में गाड़ी बनी है, ठीक है, और वो इस किस्म का पेट्रोल पीती है, ठीक है, और वो सेडान व्हीकल है, तो उसका पर किलोमीटर जीएचजी एमिशन ये है. ठीक है. It's about inputting those values into an Excel table and then going ahead and doing the calculations. So it's not very difficult. You can find, for example, अगर आपको प्लांटेशन ड्राइव करनी है और आपको ये पता करना है कि यार हमने अगर 100 दरख्त प्लांट किए हैं, ठीक है, तो इट्स वेरी इजी टू गो एंड फाइंड आउट, how much carbon does this species of tree offset. So, you don't have to invest in these technologies for tracking. It's very much possible to do it by yourself at a small level. On a larger level, where you have multiple production plants, where you have very intensive machine intensive processes, उधर ये थोड़े से ज्यादा काम आते हैं as compared to uh, these smaller scale industries, right? I think, how can we become sustainable domestically? Adil का सवाल है. Adil, sustainable domestically, तो see, I want you guys to understand that sustainability एक subjective चीज है, ठीक है? कोई objective, आप ठीक है, आप definition दे सकते हो कि यार किसी चीज की लाइफ को प्रोलॉन्ग करना एक ऐसे उसमें जिसमें वो environmental impact हो वो कम हो, but when it comes down to actually implementing sustainability, it's an extremely subjective it's an extremely subjective thing, because हर कहीं का कॉन्टेक्स्ट अलग होता है. अगर मैं कहूँ यार मुझे कराची में सस्टेनेबिलिटी इंप्लीमेंट करनी है, तो जो सस्टेनेबिलिटी डिफेंस में इंप्लीमेंट होगी और जो सस्टेनेबिलिटी क्लिफ्टन में इंप्लीमेंट होगी उसमें भी फर्क होगा, ठीक है? तो इट वेरीज वेरी वेरी सीरियसली, ठीक है? बट या मैन, यू some things that I can name off the top of my head is GHG emissions अपने क्वांटिफाई करें, ठीक है? कार्बन कैप्चर या कार्बन ऑफसेट्स को तरजीह दें, ठीक है? प्लांट ट्रीज, दरख्त लगाएं, ट्राई टू यूज फ्यूल्स दैट इमिट लेस कार्बन, ठीक है? अपने घरों में पंजाब में स्पेशली बायोगैस के प्लांट्स बहुत लगे हुए हैं, ठीक है? स्मॉल स्केल लोगों ने गांव में लगाए हुए हैं. Making a biogas plant in your house and filling it with food waste uh, is not the worst idea, ठीक है? आगे घर पे वैसे ही कराची में गैस के मसले बहुत रहते हैं, तो हमारे लिए तो बहुत अच्छा है. And yeah, so these are some of the measures. And if we have no more questions, guys, I think we can go ahead and end the session if everyone is done. Right? Yeah, I don't see any more questions coming in, so I guess we are done. Chale. Everyone, it was an absolute honor for me to host this session. This was actually the first webinar I've ever given in my life. So once again, I'm incredibly thankful to the Eco Revival team that they chose me to give this short session. And inshallah, if I get a chance to do another one, I look forward to seeing you all there. And that is all for me. And if any time any one of you wants to reach out, I think I had my email at the end of the slideshow, and if you guys want, I can drop it in the chat box. But an absolute pleasure to speak to all of you. You guys asked some great questions. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Your insights were incredibly valuable and thought-provoking. Thank you from on the behalf of Eco Revival Pakistan team. And to all our wonderful participants, thank you for being here and engaging in this important dialogue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.